Trigger control and NRA precision pistol shooting. Trigger control being one of the two fundamentals that I talk about, aiming and trigger control. Trigger control is critical, okay? To the point that if you cannot pull the trigger without disturbing the sights, like Robbie Latham said in his video, stop aiming. Because honestly, if you can't manipulate the trigger without screwing up the sight alignment and sight picture, why bother aiming? Because all the work you did to obtain a good sight alignment, good sight picture, if it goes away when you pull the trigger, just stop aiming. All right, with that said, we need to aim, we need to pull the trigger without disturbing the aiming process. One thing, if you've ever been to one of my classes, you'll know I always ask my students, what's the trigger for? It's simple, to make the gun go bang. No. Mechanically, yes. Fundamentally, no. The trigger is used to help stabilize your sights. It's a little bit crazy, but think about it. It's the only part of this gun that is moving during the aiming process. So we need to be able to manipulate that trigger and pull it straight to the rear without disturbing the sights. If we combine aiming and trigger control into one fundamental, as opposed to two separate standalone fundamentals, now you can actually kind of start to understand how trigger control relates to the aiming process, okay? One thing that's often overlooked with trigger control is trigger finger placement. Now I know in defensive shooting, the gun's coming out of the holster, it's gonna land wherever it has to, or in competitive shooting, you've got a different holster set up. In action shooting, so it's, you got a really good solid grip, good consistent trigger finger placement. Well, in NRA precision pistol, there's no reason to never have good trigger finger placement on the trigger, because you've got plenty of time to get your grip, get your finger on the trigger where it needs to be so everything feels perfect. The key is that once you get your trigger finger placement in there, notice I want to have this front part of my trigger as flat as I possibly can, or my trigger finger on the trigger. I don't want it put in so far that now I'm pushing down. You see the angle on this part of my finger, this last joint, is this way. What's going to tend to happen, depending on the size of your hand, you're either going to push the gun out of alignment, or you're going to pull it this way out of alignment. You'll push it to the left, pull it to the right. Left-handed shooters will be the opposite. You'll pull it left, push right, okay? Same thing. If we're getting in there in our fingers, if that last joint is at this angle, we're going to tend to push that trigger to the left. Left-handed shooters will push it the other way. So we want to try to get that finger so it's nice and flat. So now we're actually pulling that trigger straight to the rear and not being able to push it or pull it left or right, okay? So, easiest thing with the 1911, that crease goes on the right edge. Left-handed shooters, left crease, left edge of the trigger. By doing that, that really levels out that last joint of my finger. So now I can actually manipulate that trigger and pull it straight to the rear without pushing or pulling the gun left or right. There are videos out there of a gentleman that says, trigger control or trigger jerk is a myth. No, trigger jerk is not a myth. You can jerk the trigger and misalign the sights. Now there are people that can shoot really, really super fast. All right, you watch Jerry Michlik shoot. He can shoot super fast. And he's moving that trigger super fast, almost to the point, if you're watching it, it looks like he's jerking the trigger. But the sights are never becoming misaligned. So if you can do it that quick without misaligning the sights, yes, trigger jerk is a myth. Most people can't do that, okay? So if you do jerk the trigger hard and fast, causing the sights to become misaligned, trigger jerk is no longer a myth, okay? So, instead of just thinking about the two fundamentals that I talk about, aiming and trigger control as standalone, with trigger control we need to kind of marry those two together into aiming through trigger control. And we're going to use our trigger to help stabilize our sights. I don't like using the term steer the sights as much as I do stabilize the front sight. We focus on the front sight, we use the trigger to help stabilize that front sight relationship to the rear sight and keeping it aligned with the target. And it doesn't matter whether you shoot with a long roll, a medium roll, or even a crisp trigger. Trigger control, good trigger control is good solid trigger control, okay? Stay tuned, there's gonna be some more videos coming up. Thank you.